It's officially been 1 week since I got my Nintendo Switch 2. Time flies when you're having fun, am I right? And I sure have been. So I just want to talk about my experience and what I've been doing on this thing for an entire week. Is there something I love? Is there something I hate? We gotta talk about it. And let's start by looking at the console itself. I'm in love. Having a new, updated, and bigger Switch is honestly all I ever needed. Just look at it. I mean, it's so sleek. I wasn't sure if I'd actually prefer this darker, more serious aesthetic over the usual playful Joy-Con colors, but it's absolutely grown on me. Now, getting this thing on my little tiny hands was just as good as I expected. This console feels so much more premium than the last one. It doesn't have that plasticky feel, and the Joy-Cons don't jiggle like they used to. On the Switch 1, you'd hold it and feel the Joy-Cons wobble slightly, but the Switch 2 is a completely different story. My boy is rock solid. It's a true upgrade. Even just attaching and detaching the Joy-Cons feels so satisfying. Yes, the Switch 1 had that amazing satisfying click, but the Switch 2's magnetic snap is not only just as satisfying, but it's way more convenient. It's elegant, it's seamless, and I genuinely can't stop clicking these release buttons. I don't know how this isn't broken yet. And the Joy-Cons themselves are much better. Hardware-wise, one of the best upgrades is that the SL and SR buttons are massive. I can finally play split Joy-Con without wanting to cut my hands off from sheer pain. Also, it gives me the ability to use those wheels. Just kidding. Who in the world uses those? These Joy-Con 2s are much more comfortable, mostly thanks to their size, but also the sticks. I would lick these sticks just for fun. They feel softer than the Switch 1, and I can play way longer without my thumbs feeling like they're going to explode. I genuinely really like these sticks. But if you look in between the left and the right Joy-Con, you'll notice a screen. Yes, the Switch has a screen. Listen, I've heard some people be a little angry towards the screen. Some people don't love it, some people do. Let me tell you what I think. Well, first off, this is a 7.9-inch display, which is very big compared to the OG Switch 6.2-inch screen, and still noticeably bigger than the OLED 7-inch screen. Seriously, I went back to my Switch 1 for like a second, and it felt like I was holding a Switch Lite. That's how tiny it was. This time around, the screen is 1080p instead of 720p on the Switch 1, and you can tell. It's super sharp, and with the screen being a smaller screen, that resolution is really all it needs to be. It's also very bright because yes, this supports HDR, let's go, and you can tell because it's slightly brighter than the OLED model. But what I found most impressive is the fact that this display can do 120 frames per second. That's just crazy to me on a handheld. What in the world? I don't think any games beside Welcome Tour actually supports 120 frames per second yet, but just the fact that it's there is awesome. Now, some people are mad that this isn't an OLED screen, which I totally get. Yes, this is an LCD screen, and if you know anything about displays, you know LCD isn't as good as OLED. The contrast isn't as deep, and the blacks aren't as inky. However, while it might not sound better on paper, this screen is still phenomenal. I think some people forgot that LCD technology has advanced in the last 8 years. This LCD display looks fantastic. No, you won't get those true OLED blacks, but it's still very vibrant and bright. Either way you slice it, this is still an upgrade from the OLED model, in some ways, mainly because of the brightness and size. Now, while we're talking about the hardware side of things, we had to take a peek at this little kickstand. Look at this guy. At first, I thought it might be a little flimsy because it was just a thin little stand, but not only is it way stronger than the OG Switches, but it might actually be a little tougher than the OLED models. Not the plastic piece itself, but the hinges feel way more stable than the OLED version. It's a nice kickstand. I have no complaints so far, and it hasn't broken on me yet, but if you open your kickstand and you look underneath, you might notice this little guy. That's a micro SD express card. This is how you expand your storage, which after 1 week of use is already a problem for me. The storage on board the Switch 2 is 256 gigabytes. It's 8 times larger than the OG Switch and 4 times larger than the OLED. But already within the first week, I needed to clear some space. Some of these Switch 2 games are massive. Like Split Fiction is 70 gigabytes. That's more than a quarter of the internal storage. Street Fighter 6 is 50 gigabytes, and Yakuza 0 is also almost 50 gigabytes. Yeah, that's fine. Games are big. I get it. I just want to be able to store more of them. The problem is, Express SD cards are still pretty pricey. Not horrible in the grand scheme of things, but I was only able to grab a 256 card on day one. I might need to get a 1 terabyte card sooner than later if I actually want to keep my games installed. And it doesn't help that when I moved everything from my Switch 1, it decided to download every single digital game I owned. And I've got a lot, especially for making videos over the years. I just have a lot of really dumb games I don't care to bring over. You know, demos, random shovelware, Garfield Kart. Nintendo did not spare me with this one. It was all getting downloaded to the console. And the worst part is that you can't even batch delete them until they're fully downloaded, which meant I had to sit there and wait for them all to install just so that I could start purging them to make room. Also, I can't bring up storage without bringing up the physical game drama. Game key cards also take a toll on internal storage because, as I'm sure you know, instead of the full game being on the cartridge, it actually has to be downloaded from the eShop. Aside from the storage, I really don't mind the idea of game key cards. I'd rather have a physical version of it than no physical at all. But like, my storage is crying. And the thing is, as I built up my game catalog, making space is going to get harder and harder. I'll eventually need to start deleting games I think I won't play again. And that's going to be tough. It never used to be a problem since the games were just on cartridges and pretty compressed on the Switch 1, but now just 1 week in, it's already starting to become a problem. Maybe that'll change in my 1 month review. I'll get back to you on this one. Speaking of games, which ones have I been playing? I'm not gonna lie, I thought I'd have played a lot more by now. I really expected I would have been able to try all the launch games at this point, but after 1 week, there are still some I haven't booted up yet. Like I haven't even touched Split Fiction, I haven't touched Cyberpunk, and these are games I've been dying to play, but my brain has just been locked into a few favorites. Maybe I'll dabble in them a little bit after this video, but my goodness, there were just a lot that I wanted to try. So anyways, what have I been playing? Well, who could have seen this coming, but I've been playing a whole lot of Mario Kart World. And this game is such an awesome launch title. I've been going through every cup, every rally, playing online with other people. I'm really into it. I also wanted to play it so that I could get my review out. So that being said, I won't talk about it too much here, as you can watch my review when that comes out. But Mario Kart isn't the only thing I've been playing. I've also started playing Welcome Tour, and I gotta be honest, it's pretty fun. Yes, I know, it should be free, but it's not. Anyways, the game is very interesting. You play as a person that's literally standing on the Nintendo Switch 2. You collect stamps and learn about the console. It makes you do quizzes, which aren't super fun, but they're kind of interesting and teach you about the system, so okay, I'll take it. And there's some neat Easter eggs in there. The best part of this game so far though is the mini games. They use the hardware really well. There's one where you have to guess where the controller vibrates the most on this graph, and you get points the closer you are. Or another where you play as a little UFO dodging spike balls. And yes, I know, you can probably do that on a computer with a mouse, but the fact that it's running on the Switch is wild. And after you play these games, harder versions of the same games are available. It's much more fun than I expected. I want to 100% this. Those are technically the only 2 new games I've played, but that's not all I've been playing. You better believe I've been playing Fortnite. Calm down, I know. And trust me, I'm playing this game a lot so I can make an amazing video on it. So stay tuned and subscribe. But let me just say something about it while we're here. We all know Fortnite on the Switch 1 was absolute trash. It ran at 30 frames per second, it had constant frame rate dips, horrible textures. I made many videos tearing this game apart. But going from that to the upgraded Switch 2 version with mouse mode is a complete game changer. I also tested out The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and I gotta say, wow, just wow. Now, I never actually beat Tears of the Kingdom back when it launched because I think I was just bad at it. I finally beat Breath of the Wild a little too close to Tears of the Kingdom, and then I got a little bit of burnout. Anyways, I've always wanted to go back and revisit it just to beat it, and this is definitely the perfect time. Booting the game up in a crisp 4K resolution felt wild. It is so sharp, and it fits the art style perfectly. On top of that, it runs at an incredibly smooth 60 frames per second. I just can't believe this. I need to go back and I need to finish this. There's so many games to play. I don't know how I'm gonna have time for all this. I've been playing some Street Fighter 6. It's not bad. It's Street Fighter 6. I don't think I'm particularly good at it, but it's fun to punch stuff. I'm looking forward to trying the single player mode eventually. I think I've just lost my Street Fighter touch. I gotta get back into it. Now, as I said, I'm really looking forward to playing Split Fiction. I've heard amazing things about it and was literally just waiting for it to hit the Switch 2. And now that it's here, I haven't had time to play it yet. So, in terms of performance and power that the Switch 2 brings, you can clearly feel the enhanced speed of it. I mean, load times in Tears of the Kingdom are faster, frame rates across the board are better, and even older Switch 1 games are performing more smoothly. It honestly makes me want to go back and test a bunch of them. Maybe even finish up a backlog of old Switch 1 games that I need to finish. I don't know how I'm gonna have time to do all this. One thing I wasn't sure about at first was the battery life though. Nintendo says it'll last approximately 2 to 6.5 hours, which is a huge gap. They also mention it depends on what games you're playing. Now, listen, I've only had this thing for a week, so I can't say too much about it yet. But in the first couple of days, I was actually a little bit worried. The battery would drop like 20% just sitting there, and during gameplay, it didn't last long either. It was kind of disappointing. And then I realized it was downloading hundreds of games in the background. After my entire digital catalog downloaded, the battery now seems to be a lot more reasonable. I haven't drained it all the way down to 0 yet because I've been playing docked to capture footage for this video and other videos, but so far, I don't mind the battery, but I will need a little more time with it. Future Russ here. Also, it turns out it might not have actually been the games that were downloading that was affecting my battery. You might have seen this already, but Nintendo put out an official statement saying that there actually was an issue with the battery percentage that was being shown on the Switch 2 and not actually your battery itself. It looked like the battery was draining a lot longer and then it would just stay at like 1% for another 20-30 minutes or so. So, turns out that's probably what my Switch had. I thought maybe it was because it was downloading all my games. It's the first week, how am I supposed to know? However, Nintendo already said how we can fix this. So if you're having this issue, listen up. if you shut down your Nintendo Switch, all you gotta do is hold the volume button and then reboot it, and then it'll go into recovery mode, and then boom, it's fixed. Also, you can make sure you have the latest software update on the console itself, and that should also be fine. So if you find that your Nintendo Switch 2 is draining battery oddly fast, maybe consider fixing that. Okay, back to the video. I also wanted to quickly touch on my Nintendo Switch 2 accessories, because I bought them all, as you know, because you watched my unboxing video. And if you haven't, you can watch it after this. Don't worry. Yeah, I bought all the first-party Nintendo accessories on day one, because I wanted to test them for you. And seriously, I wouldn't have been able to do it without you watching. So thank you all so much for the support. Just by clicking this video and listening to me talking about games, you support the channel. And I'm incredibly grateful that I get to do this. Also, we're so close to 100,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please, we're so close. And hey, if you want to go above and beyond and support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. You get the videos early and your name at the end of the video and a bunch of other perks. So check that out. Anyways, the accessories, let's talk about them. The main one I've been using is the Pro Controller. Now I know, there's not that much different from the original Switch 1 Pro Controller, but this one just feels newer and honestly better to hold. Listen, I'm a big texture guy, and the texture on this thing is top tier controller texture. The plastic feels premium. I don't know what to tell you. It's also the sleek white, and the added game chat button and audio jack are really nice touches. While the Joy-Con 2s with the grip are definitely more comfortable for longer play sessions, you just can't beat this Pro Controller. This might be my favorite current gen controller I have. And I'm not gonna lie, this controller has some back buttons. It does. But I haven't used them once. I keep forgetting to map them. I also bought both the carrying cases directly from Nintendo, the all-in-one carrying case and the standard carrying case. Now look, I don't usually move my dock back and forth because I don't really have a reason to, but I guess if you're taking it to a friend's house or something, it could be useful. That said, I do think there should be more space for other accessories. It's fine, but would I recommend it? To be honest, not really. But hey, it has the Switch 2 logo on it, and it's pretty high quality, so yeah. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about the Joy-Con wheels? Who is using these? I don't know. I'm not. But an accessory I have been using quite a bit is the Nintendo Switch 2 camera. But before I talk about that, we need to talk about one of the newest Switch 2 features, and I can't believe I'm about to say what I'm about to say. Game chat is good. What? Yeah, I had no idea how this was going to fit in my daily gaming life. In fact, I thought I'd never use it. But I have been bested. Nintendo really got me this time. And let me tell you why. It's seamless. As a Switch owner, on the first console, if you wanted to play online with someone, you had to join a Discord call or call them on the phone, and that's generally what I did. The reason this is so much better is because back then I'd need my phone or my laptop next to me while gaming. I couldn't merge the two audio sources easily either, since the game audio and call audio were on two different devices, and unlike a lot of people, especially content creators, it's not like I sit at a desk all the time. I don't really have a headset or a mic that I can just use. I'm just not normally playing games and at my computer at the same time, so doing a Discord call on my Switch just doesn't happen for me that often. I am a console gamer to my core, and a huge part of the enjoyment for me is sitting on the couch and just enjoying the game. No PC, no desk beside me, just the console and my controller. So why do I like game chat? Well, that's exactly why. I don't need a second device or extra gear. It's all on my Switch 2. And what's crazy is how good the mic actually is. My Switch is set up right beside my TV, which is blasting game audio. Meanwhile, I'm talking pretty soft, noticeably quieter than the TV, and it still picks my voice up clearly, and it does a great job. Now, yes, it's not the best sounding mic, especially when you're trying to filter out background noise, but it's fantastic for the fact the mic is on the console, not the controller. And like I said, my console is a good distance from my couch. Now I know what some people are going to say in the comments. PlayStation and Xbox has had this feature forever. And I get that. I have used voice chat on those systems many times, but it usually requires a headset with a mic, and it's not nearly as seamless in my opinion. I know the PS5's DualSense controller has a mic built in, but I generally feel like they're not as good as the Switch 2's mic. And I find that people are always having a hard time listening to me on the PlayStation. Maybe that's just my friends, I don't know. And I'm just amazed by how well this feature works. And I just honestly can't believe how much I've actually been using it. Right now I've got two other friends I've been regularly chatting with on game chat, and we are truly doing what Nintendo intended. Sometimes we're just shooting the breeze, all while sharing gameplay with each other, which, yes, looks rough, but not rough enough to make it unwatchable. They obviously limit the video quality so that it doesn't eat up too much of the Switch 2's processing power, and I'm fine with that. This feature is actually good, especially when you're all playing the same game together. Even when you're playing a co-op game like Fortnite, being able to glance at your teammate's screen might not seem that helpful, but it's nice to have, especially if you want to see where they are or if they're actually contributing at all. I hope nobody sees my screen. The layout of game chat can also be changed quite a bit. There's a standard view, but it's way too big. It makes the other person's screen take up way too much space and shrinks your gameplay down too much. I prefer to keep it on the expanded view, which blows my screen up and keeps their screen smaller at the bottom so I can still see what they're doing for fun. Now, most of the time I just play in full screen with only audio chat enabled. In most cases, you don't really need to see someone else's screen, especially when I'm recording footage for videos. I'll tuck their screen away so it doesn't show up in my capture. And like I said before, there are a ton of audio options that I really appreciate. You can balance the game and chat audio manually or just turn on automatic adjust, which lowers the game volume when someone speaks. That feature alone is awesome. There's also a surprisingly robust accessibility option, speech to text. Everyone in the chat can talk and it'll automatically transcribe what each person is saying and display it on the side of the screen. I don't think I'll really ever use it, but it works very well and I'm genuinely surprised it's even here. And now, of course, we have to talk about the camera. Oh, that sweet little camera. This camera is fine. Definitely not necessary though. Using it in game chat is very funny because the quality is so bad. I even got the little Piranha Plant camera, which is 480p. It's rough. And when you're sitting on the couch and the system upscales that 480p, it really looks more like 100p from across the room. I also noticed it's not great at cropping when there's more than one person in the room, which makes sense, I guess. I haven't used the camera a ton, but again, I haven't had them for that long to judge if it's really worth it or not, especially in game chat. There's fun to mess around with if you've got them, but definitely not a necessity. Now, in-game functionality is another story. For example, if you're playing Mario Kart and have a camera connected, your face appears above your character on screen. And seeing someone's live reaction when they're racing is hilarious. It makes you feel like they're really on the track with you. It's bizarre. But overall, my game chat experience was really good. And I'm definitely going to keep using it. I can't believe I'm saying this right now. In fact, there was a time where 3 of us wanted to jump into Fortnite with game chat, but one of us wasn't done downloading the game yet. So what did he do? He launched Fortnite on his PlayStation, but kept his Switch 2 on just to use game chat instead of Fortnite's native voice chat. Maybe it's just because it's new and we find it fun and fresh, I don't know. However, this might just be a better and more seamless experience. It's only been a week, but I'll keep you updated. Now, what about the UI on the console? They didn't change much with the home screen or the UI. Game icons now have rounded edges with a little rainbow outline. I still like that it's so simple. They changed just enough to make it stand out and feel new, and I'm glad they didn't just copy and paste the old layout. Oh, the eShop, let's talk about that. Finally, it's faster. But now let's talk about the gimmick this time around. Mouse mode. This is such an interesting addition, and so far I've only used it in Welcome Tour and Fortnite. I also know it's supported in Cyberpunk. I really wasn't sure what to expect at first, but playing Fortnite with a mouse felt kind of awesome. What I love most is that you can use it on your lap or on the couch, and it works decently in those setups. There can be a little inconsistency when moving the cursor, though it works, but not perfect all the time. It's fine for navigating menus and casual gameplay, but when you're using it in a competitive shooter like Fortnite, you need it to be precise. So I just threw a mouse pad next to me on the couch, and from there, it worked beautifully. Now, there were some things I wasn't sure about at first. Like, is this actually better than using sticks in Fortnite? Once again, I'll save my full Fortnite mouse mode opinions for that video, but let me just say, using the mouse in Fortnite is next level. One thing I didn't expect though is that I'd get absolutely clapped in my first few matches. I wasn't used to aiming with a mouse and I got destroyed, but after a while, I started getting the hang of it. Maybe I'm finally becoming a PC gamer. Now I will say the Joy-Con shape isn't very mouse-like and you can kind of feel it. My hands got a little tired during the first hour or so, but eventually I found a sweet spot and started using it comfortably. I think once some proper mouse accessories come out, this will get even better. That said, clicking the face buttons while in mouse mode feels a little weird, especially at first. I think over time my fingers will morph properly, but yes, it's just a little jarring in the beginning. Still, I really like how seamless mouse mode is. I even found myself using the cursor to navigate menus instead of buttons. It's not supported in that many games right now, and that's fine. We don't really need it to be everywhere. It's just good to have when it's actually useful. And the other gimmick is the classic switch feature, switching from handheld to console mode. And yeah, not too much has changed there. You're all good, it still works as it should. But one thing about the console that I'm really not sure about yet is the whole virtual game card thing. I still find it kind of confusing. Maybe I'm just slow, especially the fact that there are some games where the virtual key card is still on my Switch 1, and I need to bring my Switch 1 closer to my Switch 2 just to play this game. I get what they're trying to do, but it doesn't always make sense. For example, it feels weird that I need to load a virtual game card after I buy a game on the eShop on that console. It should just download to the system automatically. Why does it have to ask if I want to use a virtual game card? Like, this is my only Switch 2. Why would I need to load it on any other console? Do you know what I'm saying? Every time you download a Switch 2 game, it asks you if you want to download it with your virtual game card. It's kind of weird. But the really confusing part is the free games. Like, why in the world can I only play Fortnite, a free game, on one console that has my account? Or take something even more basic. YouTube. That's an app. It's not even a game. And while I wouldn't necessarily be using it on two consoles at once, having to swap the virtual game card between Switch 1 and 2 for a free app just seems completely pointless. That's the kind of thing I actually see people wanting to use across multiple consoles, but instead it's locked behind this awkward system. I feel like it's literally my job to understand these Switch mechanics so I can explain them in my videos. And still, even this gets a little confusing for me sometimes. So imagine someone who isn't a gamer, or a parent, or a kid who's getting a Switch 2 for Christmas and finally upgrading. You're telling me they're going to just immediately grasp virtual game cards and I can't? Actually, that might make sense. I think this is the most confusing thing Nintendo has done with the Switch 2 so far, and I'm hoping they streamline the process or just make it feel less in your face as time goes on, because it definitely adds unnecessary work right now, from what I've noticed. I'm sure over time, as I use the Switch 2 more and maybe go back to my Switch 1 for some videos and stuff like that, I'll get more used to it. That could be the case. I just think Nintendo is making it a little more confusing than it actually needs to be. But am I loving this console so far? Absolutely yes. It's an upgraded Switch, it's bigger, it's better, and for someone who loves playing Nintendo games, this is fantastic. Now, as for the price, is it worth buying or upgrading? Obviously, that just depends. If you don't need Mario Kart World right away, then technically you don't need to upgrade. But we already have a bunch of exclusive games that are coming to the Switch 2 this year, like a new Hyrule Warriors game, Kirby Air Riders, an upgraded version of Metroid Prime 4. There's so many. And Nintendo just announced that there's a new Splatoon spin-off coming out just for the Switch 2. This is crazy. Not to mention all the Switch 1 games that are getting Switch 2 ports with performance upgrades. For me, this is totally worth it. If you appreciate graphics, better frame rates, faster load times, and just modern hardware, you'll enjoy this. Now, obviously, I don't love $80 games, but you don't need to buy $80 games. I think the value of the console alone, comparing it to other video game consoles and PC handhelds, it's a pretty good price for what you're getting. And I'm planning to do more in-depth comparisons to other consoles soon, so stay tuned. All right, I'm gonna go play my Switch 2. Have you got a Nintendo Switch 2 yet? Let me know in the comments. And hey, look at all these names. Don't you want to join them? Support the channel and become a Vandy. Also, consider liking and subscribe. We're so close to 100,000, so join the under 100,000 club. Let's go. All right, I'll see you in the next one. See you later.